Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and resistance is futile. We are Starfleet. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. What a night. What a night. What an episode. And we're here to talk all about it. I think we should just skip the cat. We got a cat in the shot. I think we can go ahead and just skip talking about news tonight, because the only news is that Star Trek is back. Star Trek is back in town. Let's get right into it. We've just seen the 9th episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. It's an episode entitled Vox, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, as always, a warning. We are setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us. But if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Vox is: a devastating revelation about Jack alters the course of Picard's life forever and uncovers a truth that threatens every soul in the Federation. The final battle begins as Picard and his crew race to save the galaxy from annihilation, but not without a gut-wrenching cost. The episode was written by Sean Tretta and Kylie Rossettler and directed by Terry Matalas. And it takes place in 2401. Specifically, we know April 2401 because it's Frontier Day, so we know that. Here's some facts about the episode. This is actually, there's just more and more. This is the 16th episode now in the Star Trek franchise that has a Latin title to it. I won't go through them all, but there was an Enterprise episode with the title Vox Sola, which is a terrible episode, if you remember. It's the one where the crew gets tied up in a giant spider's web. And they're like, oh, how do we get onto this spider's web? Quick, wiggle your foot. You don't remember that? Woof, Fred Decker. Woof is all I have to say. This episode features the on-screen return of Elizabeth Dennehy as Shelby and Alice Krieg as the Borg Queen. The actors behind those characters both had voice roles as their characters in the 2nd season of Lower Decks. And Shelby's first name is confirmed on screen here as Elizabeth, which has been beta canon for years previously. And I don't know off the top of my head, or without going to memory beta, but I'm sure somebody your dad knows gave her that name. Any idea?
Something in print, perhaps.
Yeah, probably. Must have been in print, for sure. Let's dive right into it. I mean, what'd you think about Vox?
I thought it was pretty good. I feel like a 10-episode season seems difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
Like, that's my main. I feel like I felt like when I was watching, I was kind of like, okay, now Starfleet will be back to normal at the end of next episode,
Yeah. It's hard to, you're right. I mean, it's hard to evaluate it because this isn't just, a 10-episode season of TV. It's like the culmination of almost 40 years of these characters and, the fandom's love and appreciation for them. And so it becomes almost like, it's intended as like a greatest hits sort of, how do we get all these people in? Because normally I would say, telling us it's the Borg like 2 episodes from the end, not really a good storytelling technique, but probably not really intended to be a good one. We kind of pull the rug out and go, oh, of course it was the Borg the entire time. Did you, we didn't do a tinfoil hat runner really for this season of Picard. Like, did you have any inkling that, it was the Borg that was behind it? Or did you know that, something must have been behind the War of the Worlds tentacles, and guess what? It was the Borg.
Oh, God. I certainly, what did we say? It was a couple episodes ago that I was like, something was in Picard and it got passed to his son.
Yeah.
It wasn't his like syndrome.
Yeah.
But now, except for I thought it had something to do with the changelings, right? So now I'm like waiting. I'm like, and maybe like there's going to be a connection somehow. Because why do the changelings want him?
Yeah. Well, it might, there's another episode left. I'm sure it'll be a long one and we'll get our answers. But it does seem like the changelings were kind of fittingly a red herring, in this case. We're really concerned about them. They're a giant threat. But it turns out maybe they were just, the pawns of the Borg in this case. We don't really know. I saw somebody online, and I think it's always, I guess it's fun, but it's kind of a wasted effort to try and do this. But somebody was looking at remember the gooey head that we saw that's like, you got to go get this Jack or whatever. People are like, oh, there's one part of it looks kind of like an ocular implant, maybe that's like the face of Locutus or it's a Borg or something. And it's like, all right, I guess those people are right. I think just guessing the Borg are behind it is probably a good guess. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what it is. In the past, it's kind of two great tastes that have never tasted each other because DS9 never really did anything with the Borg. And I think there's a throwaway line about how the Borg, the Dominion, are resistant to assimilation. But I guess we'll find out, at the end of this thing, how these two guys got together. It's episode 10, right? It opens up. We're in the past, 25 years in the past, and we see like a gooey hand shake a robot hand. It's like, there we go. We're going to work together on this one. But yeah, you were absolutely right about him passing something to Jack.
I get he must be special somehow, like, and not just somehow connected to the like Borg mainframe, like, because I can't see why else the changelings would want him unless there's something like, I guess maybe his like mind control stuff, his mind reading stuff. I don't understand like that if the whole thing is that he's connected to the Borg, but like maybe they wanted to like repeat the experiments that were done to them to make them different so that they could like gain that ability. Because that, I mean, is that anything?
Maybe it seems to me that they're going with this idea of Jack being like a transmitter of sorts, right? And so he's the key for them to activate all of their Borg sleeper cell, people. Where he gets his telepathy from, or if that's just him accessing in a latent way his ability to control people, I don't know. We'll find out. I mean, that pays off in this episode, obviously. It's just another one of those, and I mean, like, villains' big plans. I mean, do they ever really make sense? But a lot of steps had to be gone through here in order for this to work. And if you're going to alter Jean-Luc Picard, at the genetic level, why not make him horny and irresponsible? And so that way he can have like a bunch of children, and they don't have to just get this one guy that Dr. Crusher has taken out to the middle of nowhere. But yeah, okay, making Picard's legacy, literally his genetic legacy, be something dangerous is it's kind of depressing. But I guess that's you got us again, Borg. You just won't keep pulling me back in. It's sinister.
Yeah.
Do you think so? They say the Borg haven't been seen in a decade. Well, I mean, they were seen last year in season 2 of Picard. Did that not? Once does Girardi not count, or the Borg, the giant space whirlpool that everybody shot into? Like, does that not count? Are we not counting them as Borg, or does that just not matter?
I'm a little confused, to say the least.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I was like, this came out of left field. Like, I wasn't like surprised, but I was like, oh, we're doing the Borg.
Yeah.
Famously color coded red.
Right. Well, that was to throw you off, I'm sure.
Yeah. I guess here's what it is. I feel like they got to the bridge of the Enterprise D, and I was like, this is where we've just wanted to go for like 3 seasons, right? We just wanted, we wanted a next gen reunion. And now after 19 episodes, we're where I feel like they wanted to go from the jump.
Yeah. It's Surf Draculas. It's like, I can't remember who said this, but if they made a show today called Surf Draculas, the entire first episode, there'd be a Dracula and he's like, I don't know, I'm afraid of the water. And then the last 5 minutes of the first season, of the last episode of the first season, he'd be like, get his surfboard and be like, I'm gonna go surfing, and then we don't, then we'll do the surfing later, and
Mhm.
it's just like just start at the fireworks factory. That's the new thing we should teach screenwriters. Like, we open on a fireworks factory, it is on fire. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, how do you keep your older cast going on that set? Which, by the way, beautiful. Now I don't know. I didn't look this up. That wasn't like they built that, right? That they didn't shoot that in like Ticonderoga, right? Like I was like, oh, is the
Is
TNG
the is
set open
the
already?
I was gonna say, is Enterprise D set open in Ticonderoga
Yeah,
yet?
I don't know, but take some pointers from these guys. It looks really great.
It looks what I thought. I Some of it certainly I think they built. Maybe not all of it. There was one shot where it was like facing the view screen where I was like, and I think there were no people in it. Where I was like, yeah, that could be
Oh,
just like
they're in the volume room or
whatever.
something.
But
Yeah,
when they were
yeah,
standing there, I was like, it looks. I mean, maybe it's just fantastic. Maybe some of it is like that stuff they use on Strange New Worlds and Disco, where it's like that like wall of
yeah,
lights that looks amazing. Like maybe it just looks sick, but it looks like they built it.
yeah. Well, it's really impressive, and yeah, I mean, we'll see a lot of it next week, hopefully. In the chat, Mikan Hana says the changelings and the Borg are both about being connected to everyone, and that is an interesting point, which I feel like the episode was kind of trying to do something with, but not. At least in this episode, it wasn't totally explored. The idea that the Borg are in the past have been a commentary on, I don't know, it depends on what pundit you're watching on YouTube, but they're either a criticism of capitalism or they're a criticism of communism. But just the idea of a hive mind, a society that accepts all of its members, but sort of crushes them and makes them all serving the state. And so we get that, and then you've got a character like Jack, who they give him a scene where he's like, all my life I've wanted to do this, and I've wanted a sense of belonging, but now you tell me it's because I'm a Borg. And it's like, that's interesting, but we don't really know this character. Like, I guess I know that about the character because he told me that. And
It's
we
also
haven't really...
like, brother, what, you've been living with your mom
Yeah.
on the spaceship for
Well,
25 years?
they've been going around and like they're doing like a Beverly's Red Cross thing. Like I can
Yeah.
see. I don't feel like I really saw it on the screen, but I get what they're doing, and I think that's interesting.
Did he go to college?
What I want to know is how it will tie back, if it will at all, to Starfleet, because everybody sit down. We need to talk about Starfleet. In these new shows, and in the ones that are set in the late 24th and early 25th century, we have seen glimpses of Starfleet, but not the kind of Starfleet that exists normally in the background of the old 90s and 2000s shows. And I personally, and other people, have really wondered, like, what is Starfleet now? Like, what do we want to say? Like, is it the same organization? Has it been affected by stuff? I know people are worried about preserving the utopia. I think that's a fair concern. But like, even a utopia can have cracks. Inter arnum aluminum linoleum, whatever that Latin phrase is. And like, we see in the future in Discovery, the Federation's on the ropes, but they, use their values to sort of reunite and sort of plant a new seed and grow something. And I think that's great. I wish that they would sort of pull the trigger on like things are not great in Starfleet, and I think they've laid enough traps, if you will. They've planted enough seeds to show us that. Elizabeth Dennehy's Shelby's coming out here. Admiral Shelby, in the Enterprise F comes out here, and we're supposed to get excited about that, and it's exciting to see her. But then she tells us, oh, we've linked all the ships together now, and we can have a new armada that's unstoppable for exploration and science. And you're like, you say that, but are you trying to imply that there's something more sinister there? I think it would be a fair thing to do and a fun thread to follow, but I'm never quite sure if the franchise is really doing that or has the guts to do that. What do you think?
I kind of think they do, because they sort of have been, I mean, it's like you said, and I think it is, we talked about this before, about being sort of just like maybe a result of the times that we're living in now versus like the 60s, where so much sci-fi was so like, they had a lot of utopian themes, I feel like. But
yeah,
I'll
tell you one thing. People in Star Trek in the future are terrified of distributed computing, because in Lower Decks, in Prodigy, in both Lower Decks and Prodigy, and now in Picard, we've had a finale where they have a signal or a program has taken over ships, and all the ships have shown up, and now the Starfleet ships are bad ships, and they're all fighting each other. Like, we've done this over and over and over again, and I don't. I mean, like, you think TikTok's bad? Oh boy. And I don't. That's a weird, old timey thing to be scared of. Like, it's certainly going forward in the future as we develop our own computing, in real life. It's something we have to worry about. But if they haven't figured it out by then, it reminds me of Battlestar Galactica. How in Battlestar Galactica, which came out in the mid 2000s, that was a big problem, right? Like, the whole thing about the Galactica was she was a dumb ship. She wasn't wired to the other ships. There wasn't like a network, and that's how the Cylons infiltrated. And so therefore, no computer's going to be hooked up on our ship, and we're going to use phones with cords, and everything's analog. And so at the end of this episode, we get the USS Galactica, aka the restored Enterprise D, that's like, this is a dumb ship. We won't be taken over by these guys. But I wonder why they like keep going back to that thing. Like, the problem is going to come from within, not without, right? If we are examining our culture as Star Trek is used to doing, Picard has all the technology. He's got the book learning. He's got the big collected works of Shakespeare in the corner. But he comes up to a planet and he goes, they've got a problem. And we've had this problem. We could easily have this problem ourselves. Like, it's always that introspection. But now it's always just, the biggest bad guys have united. They're going to subvert our computers. I agree with you that they are doing it, but I don't know if they know they're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that really
they
hit
must
the gas.
know.
Do you think so?
Well, because if you look at the shows they're making, like, that specific theme has been repeating too much for them to not realize, right? And
but,
like,
but if they were fully cognizant of it, why would they repeat that theme? They would.
That's kind of my question, and that's why I keep saying, like, I wonder if it's just like it's just like the times we're living in, like people are scared of TikTok, but they're also scared of, like, the government.
Yeah, well, something that is so we're worried about the effects of the problem, but not the cause or the core of the problem. And the way that Picard's malady, not his Ironic syndrome, now his Borg infection, is spread to everybody else, is that it gets into the transporter, and then the transporter, all transporters everywhere apparently have a little Jean-Luc Picard in them that then beams that into people. And then just offhandedly, Geordi goes, well, all transporters just kind of save a basic human, just to save time, so they can just squirt that out, which totally answers the question of whether it's the same you that comes out of the transporter, because as far as the transporter is concerned, no. So there is no soul, confirmed in the 25th century. But second of all, the transporter saving all this information about you, that's like forget TikTok. That's a huge violation. And apparently at some point, like, people in the Federation were just like, it's fine. Like, do they trust their computers too much? Have they relied too much on this technology? I don't mean in a touchy-feely way. I mean in a maybe the Borg can take over the entire fleet one day kind of way if we're not careful.
And they did.
Yeah, good example. It happened. This is like the worst thing that's ever happened to Starfleet.
I know, and that's why I'm like, I think I'm in, and I have this thing where it's like I so rarely kind of dislike watching an episode of Star Trek, and not that I disliked watching it, but just that I got to that and I was like, I'm not really feeling anything. I don't really care, and maybe I'm just like being jaded, but it's like I don't really care about Jack. I'm happy.
Jack.
Oh no, he's a Borg the whole time. I'm glad that we got to where, like, the series I think wanted to go, and I think it's Picard specifically. I feel like has had, I think it's clear that there's maybe been some difficulties in, like, the writer's room, or just like, so I feel like there's some inner, like, every season has been so different when the whole time it's supposed to have been like this reunion. I think there's something bigger perhaps went wrong, and I hate to, people work very hard on this kind of thing. But TV shows and films are meant to be critiqued. Then I went to film school.
Yeah,
Um,
yep, that's what we do.
um,
Yeah.
I just
I,
didn't feel anything.
yeah.
It's
Well,
like, and how long
I
can they make the next episode? They're gonna make it an hour and 10 minutes, and
yeah,
like,
it's gonna be 2 hours. It's gonna be a
yeah,
movie.
like I at this point I'm like, why didn't they just make like why didn't they funnel all this movie into or all this money into making like a next gen movie that went directly to streaming on Paramount Plus, and
Well, you get
they could have set it up,
yeah.
but that's
I
too risky because
That's just one set of impressions of commercials, right? Like an episode, you get however many Crest commercials or whatever, and so that's why everything is a 10-hour series. I think it's possible that uh, with this new method that they have of making things, which is make it into a series for profitability, um, it's for some reason they've taken the same idea of, because we've talked before about how you could it'd be overstuffed, but this is basically a movie. They just have to make it 10 hours. And so it's the writers treat it that way too. And like originally there were kind of mini arcs in like the first season of Picard, or there was there's like an episode where Narek and Soji, did I get it right? Are just gonna make out and flirt the entire time. That's a side thing. There's the Nepenthe episode where we just go talk to Troy and Riker, and that's kind of a side thing. But mostly it's all kind of chapters in a long movie. And so when you have a movie, everything looks like an apotheosis of a climax, where we hit this big world-ending threat. And like this has been like the apotheosis of apotheosi. And part of it is that they're really steering into it, I think, the movie idea. I think Discovery has always, if they've got episodic type plots, but they've always looked at it like a big movie. Terry Matalas has been very forward and honest about the fact that he sees this as his movie. And so maybe it was just a movie too far in terms of how they're kind of attacking things and how they're not really exploring themes too much, because we've got, set pieces that we have to get to. We've sort of assembled it in this sort of way. We've got timed reveals that are going to come out. I mean, it's hard to make a 26 episode season of TV. It's hard to make a 10 episode season of TV. So you ever watch like The White Lotus? You ever watch that?
Yeah, I watched the first. I haven't watched the second season. I've watched the first one though.
Is it any good?
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Do they have to save the White Lotus before it explodes at the end or something?
No.
Oh, the stakes are lower. Okay.
I mean, it's
everybody's DNA at the White Lotus from the hot tub.
Oh.
They've brought two classic characters back here, of course. Commander, now Admiral Shelby, and Alice Krieg as the Borg Queen. And Alice Krieg, it's great to see her back. Of course, we only hear her. Hopefully, we'll see her in the next episode. She's gonna have like a Borg wheelchair, because Alice Krieg's getting up there. She's not. The median age of this entire series is just shot. But I don't know if I love or am completely scandalized by the fact that I feel like they're steering into that too. I feel like this became Star Trek Yellowstone this week, when the malady that affects everybody only affects those youngsters who can hear those high-pitched sounds that they play at rest stops or at gas stations. And so like everybody with gray hair is like, oh, thank God oh boy. You got gray hair. Okay, we're good. Kill these youngsters. Only we can do it. Only the old people can save you. I mean, that was always in the cards, bringing the old crew back, but it's just like literally like made manifest in the fact that like all the smooth skinned people are like, trying to kill you now.
Yeah, I mean, which is great, because I love, it's nice to watch a TV show with a bunch of like old people on it, to be blunt about it.
Well, if you remember, like on TNG, all the time there'd be some guy in blue pajamas who's got like gray hair, and you're like, that guy serves on the Enterprise D. They'd just be whatever extras they could get. It's just some guy with a mustache, and you're like, all right. But apparently that's not the way Starfleet is. Starfleet is all, young, slick aliens who are here to conquer the universe. And now they're all Borg. So we need some of those old guys in pajamas to come back and just get the crew out like a 90s Clint Eastwood movie.
They know how to use a rotary phone.
Yeah, right. We got all this technology. Oh, we need somebody step back. I got this.
One of them is holding a cassette tape and a pencil. They're like, how are these connected?
You also, if they could have set this up sooner by saying that like extremely long-lived species were being mysteriously murdered or like having their applications to Starfleet denied, because this whole thing is based on the idea that 25, maybe 35, 25 years have to go by for this thing to be distributed through the fleet, and it only affects people who, were that age at a certain time. And so all of our heroes are past the cutoff. But like we see a Vulcan guy and I'm like, when does a Vulcan's brain stop growing? Like, or would it be longer? Would it be like shorter lived species? Like a species that the Qatarians only live 40 years or whatever. And so by 10 years old, their brain is is crystallized. And so they won't be affected by the thing. So we got to get rid of those guys. I don't know. It's just a device. It doesn't matter. When does a Vulcan brain stop aging? That's my question. I don't know. So anyway, cool to get those characters back. Here's something that's a little depressing. We've had 2 classic female characters come back. We've had 2 classic female characters die. And hold on for next week, because I don't think there's any way Alice Krieg is getting out of this thing.
Or just be there to be the mom of the main plot device.
Well, I think it's great that you can look back in the history of TNG and go, let's get some great memorable characters, and they're female characters. I think that's fantastic. Maybe the more women characters we have, the more likely it is that we're going to kill a woman character, but this has been a bad news for lady characters. Rachel Garrett's entire statue got portaled into the ground. So
let's do the the danger thermometer here. Do you think they're going to kill? Do you think they're going to kill one of the main cast?
They've literally resurrected TNG one of the main cast.
Data. Well, I was going to say that isn't Data.
We are +1 at this point.
Data lore before.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think we've been the fact that we've been killing off a lot of side characters is like not an indicator that we're going to kill big characters. I think it's to whet our appetite for character blood. So I think it would be very unlikely that any major character outside of maybe Jean-Luc himself gets killed. That being said, who would be a good one?
Who'd be a good? Who do you want to kill?
Geordi's literally got a new generation to take over the mantle for him, so the sisters they bond over their father's death. He becomes a hero and, that he's always remembered. I think Geordi would be a good candidate. It would be really cruel to kill either Riker or Troy at this point. But they did, they made up.
Or
they're ready to die.
A good choice because it would be all the more heartbreaking after they had their little heart-to-heart in the cage.
Nobody's going to miss Geordi. Hands off a Worf. I still think they want to do that Worf show. I think they'll get desperate enough to do the Worf
They're keeping
show.
their fingers crossed.
Yeah. Oh, you just said it in the past, I guess. But that's about it. I think everybody else is pretty safe. I think Jack might die. I don't know. But I don't think so. I think Jack's safe. I think Beverly's safe.
Really? I was going to say maybe they'll kill Crusher.
I think so. Another female character.
Well, just that, it's like she her son, and then her weird missed connection with Picard. I think they reunite. You
want to talk about heartbreaking? They bring, for years people have been saying get Beverly and Picard together. Now they did it off screen apparently, and have them have this connection.
Stand button on the script.
Yeah, well, to have them have this connection. And then to break that up, that'd be really spiteful, but possible. I just they get together and then What's I don't even remember her name. The Vulcan or the Romulan. The Romulan
Oh
maid
yes!
gets.
Oh my god!
She gets an email. Your services are no longer required. She's like, God damn it.
I got fired.
Laris, right? That's her
Laris,
name.
that's it. That's it. There's something good in the chat.
What if Jack accidentally kills his mom? Well, that sounds stupid, but yeah, I think that's just stupid enough. It might happen.
I don't know.
What if he kills the Borg Queen instead of his mom? He ends up with a lassie choice. Come on, Jack. Oh, come on, Jack. And he's like, ugh, and he kills the queen. You're not my greasy mom. This is my dry mom.
I don't know. Or he tries, like, the Borg Queen's like, kill Picard. And he's like, ah. And then, Bev steps in front.
Has anybody killed themselves with a phaser? At this point, there's been so much.
Not much suicide in Star
Trek. There's been so many phaser murders, I can't remember. But we haven't done that yet. Somebody has. They're referencing the films all over the place. They have to do a Captain Tyrell. Speaking of people dying, we all knew it was coming, but it's surprised that it took this long. But R.I.P. to a real one, Captain Shaw. Why did he have to die? Why not just blow his leg off? He clearly will not. They can give him a new leg later, but he will not be able to follow them on this adventure. We just silo him. We can bring him back for another show. Like, why? Why kill him?
I just wish he had started calling 7 like 3 episodes ago.
Yeah, his arc was over. And I know that's when a character dies, but it's also when a character just goes, all right, he's gonna go.
Learned not to be prejudiced.
Yeah, right. We just he just go take care of his family or something. I don't know.
He learned a modicum of respect for human life. It is too bad. He was a really fun character. And that guy, I think, he was out there. He was in like one episode and then on the cruise. I feel like that actor, like, what he wanted to be involved, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There aren't many Star Trek actors, and maybe this is part of their audition or interview, but I feel like a lot of Star Trek actors come in knowing that there's a fandom involved and you will probably be asked to be a part of the fandom. Like, you don't hear about a lot of Star Trek actors like, oh no, I don't do that kind of stuff, and I think that's
they all do it because frankly, because they can make the money, frankly. Well, but sure, I feel like also they're often like surprised.
Yeah, but you rarely, in fact, I can't think of anything. Like, you never hear of like, well, I got, so-and-so's autograph, but they were like a real jerk about it. Like, you don't really run into that.
I guess I just got good vibes from that actor, and I'm sad that he is gone.
Yeah, that's too bad. What else? Having the Borg Queen. Like, yeah, whatever. Anyway,
I feel like there will be a lot more to say like next week. Today was the cliffhanger.
Yeah, well, look, I can keep talking now. Like, speaking of nice actors, like, it's too bad. Like, I mean, I'm sure, it is what it is. But when Annie Wershing, passed away, it's like, all right, well, we got Alice on speed dial, right? We kind of set up a whole new Borg Queen, and then that's not going to work anymore. But what else? Horny and irresponsible. That's what the Borg should have made him. So do they do this? They kind of tried to set up, and I didn't do the math, but they tried to kind of set up that it's like 250 years. It's a half-E, double-E centennial or whatever since, the launch of the NX-01. So it's Frontier Day or whatever. But they don't do this every year, right? Like space fireworks. The Ewoks are singing Nub Nub, and they're doing a whole celebration. This is a big deal.
Yeah, I think that they probably do something every single year, but not to this scale.
Every year, it's just not Frontier Day until Admiral Elizabeth comes flying out in the Enterprise F, and then yeah.
And then it really feels like Frontier Day.
Everybody's giving each other coonskin caps. I don't know.
Yeah, Captain Kirk is gonna sneak in and leave candy in your shoes.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. They say they never found his body, so he could still be out there today. And if you leave your shoes out, your little zip-up boots, maybe you too will get some candy.
And if you're bad, the Borg Queen will put coal in your stocking.
She'll put altered DNA in your shoes. Bad news for that. What else? If you're going to kill the Excelsior, don't do it off screen. Pay for
Yeah.
pay for an explosion. That's what I
Yeah.
have to say. The poor Excelsior, always a bridesmaid, but in this case, just literally blows up on the radio.
Oh, wasn't it Thomas Maroney that designed the new Enterprise?
I think so.
Thomas, let's go.
Yeah. It's I feel like we didn't get a lot of time with it. But I've seen pictures online. It's okay. I guess I don't at this point in my Star Trek viewing life. I don't want to say all the ships look the same because they didn't used to.
It looked a little different. I felt like it was like a progression of the old Enterprise.
They didn't used to look all the same, but like now you show me the Titan and the thing and the other thing, and it's just like, all right, yeah, it's got nacelles, and I mean, like,
I think that'll change now. They're getting the Star Trek Online guys. I feel like are getting more and more involved in like the TV show canon, and I think that'll change now.
Okay, that's
if
cool.
they get their little, they get to style it a little bit more. I think it'll be nice.
Let's talk about the end of the episode and Geordi's project car, the USS Enterprise D, which so they leave space dock and they fly to space dock, a different space dock, and they're pulling in, and you got the whole crew in the shuttlecraft, and my girlfriend just looks at me like. And I'm like, I think so. And yep, sure enough, it's the Enterprise D, like we never left. There it is.
But that was the point the whole time. Isn't that what we all wanted? Was for them and like just for them in the room on the just let them do something. Like it just felt. I guess it just kind of felt like I was like, okay, finally, now this is where we were supposed to be. The whole time the show was going this direction. Here we are.
A Voyager is small, an Intrepid class. An Oberth, a steam runner is smallish. If you had like a personal project, that would be one thing. I know it's an old ship, but a Galaxy class starship is like a mile long.
Yeah, but that museum is huge.
How many work crews are working on Geordi's secret project for the boss? But yeah, we've got it back. And funny, weird, spiteful reference to the Enterprise E, like just sort of also off screen. Oh, I guess it got destroyed somehow.
Ooh.
Like, do people really? Some people like the Enterprise E, right? We didn't get to see a lot of it. You could have just said, didn't it ram Tom Hardy's ship at the end of Nemesis? Like it was. I guess then they rebuilt it like in a big thing. But anyway, the point is that. They didn't immediately leave space dock, and then Worf forgot to put the parking brake on, and they slid into a black hole. But anyway,
I guess I don't really have a connection to the ships besides like I feel like you spend after 7 seasons of a show. It's like I love, or like even the original series. I'm like I love that Enterprise, but the newer stuff is like I just feel like we don't know the ships well enough as a character.
Okay, that's interesting. So first of all, they're completely wasting their time. But then again, I don't think they're making this show for you, unfortunately. I'm glad that you enjoy it, but I don't think that this episode or this season of TV is for you.
I certainly am outside the demographic.
Well,
but I usually am.
Theoretically, it's for everybody. So you don't think that? I guess I haven't thought about it. You don't think that like if in another 15 years they do like Discovery season 6. And Burnham and crew, find their way back to the original Discovery, and they're like, "This is it. We're home," and you won't feel like that kind of same feeling because the ship has always been a character on.
Yeah,
Star
I guess
Trek. That's totally
same thing as what? Same thing as like today, where I'm like, this is what I was waiting for, and not really anything, or like that I wouldn't feel good.
Yeah.
It would depend.
It does depend. And, when you have a network show, you're going to make 26 episodes, if you're lucky, on this bridge, this set. You design the hell out of it. You make sure that it's interesting. And because we're going to see our characters there all the time. And one of the downsides of having a lot of locations and a lot of new ships and stuff like that is you just kind of run out of, like, interesting things to have a bridge look like. or you just start using like the same thing over and over again. So when we see Elizabeth Denny on the bridge of the Enterprise F, probably the flagship of the thing, she's just like sitting in a chair, and then it's clear that she's just doing this from home on a green screen, and there's nothing really interesting behind her, and you're like, that's the bridge of the Enterprise F?
It's fun. I mean, it was kind of a close shot of her and the captain. She's making the announcement.
But now they have those like super wide, like 35 by 7 like view screens, so there's all this like dead space. You should see like the side of a dirty shot of like a Vulcan's eyebrow or something like in the foreground. What do you think about so new podcast, it's the Seven and Rafi appreciation 5 minutes. Do you think Seven and Rafi are gonna get like they're gonna get a little diehard on the Titan, right? But are they gonna have like emotional closure or more emotional closure?
Them will die.
Oh, well,
maybe Rafi will die.
So Seven's not gonna die. I tell you that right now.
I'm a little worried now.
She's not gonna die. I like that Seven doesn't like Data. I don't know why. It's funny. She's just like, yeah, the robot's right. Just like.
I mean, it's funny because he's acting, weird because it's not quite Data, so he's acting a little too much.
Yeah, but she doesn't know him at all.
I know, but it is funny for her to be like, okay, whatever. They're like, she just is like, okay, they woke up this robot. I don't.
Yeah, suddenly there's this old guy, and everybody's excited that he can say can't. I've been not using contractions for a long time. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get some good action out of Seven and Rafi, although I think we're more under control, because one of the problems with the finale of Picard Season 2 is that there was like 5 different plot lines that we were tracking through the end. And this seems like it's going to be
you're right.
Our main crew, a little side thing with Rafi and Seven. Maybe Worf will have to run off and cut some more heads off. We'll keep it.
I am very excited for next week.
Kind of good. Yeah, I do.
I'm looking forward to it.
This is, I get to say this at the end of every Picard season, but this has been kind of a roller coaster. And I'm not sure that I have approved of all of the things that have happened, but I will say that I am, I do want to see how it turns out. Oh, I also wanted to say, I found a copy of the script for this season. It's right here. It's the Star Trek: The Next Generation coloring book. That's a visual joke. But anyway, if you don't have anything else to say, I think I'm ready to wrap it up. I do want to say
you have the bit set up.
Yeah, I want to.
Funny.
I want to say
and a scathing joke.
I want to say that it was laying around. I want to say that whatever happens going forward, I do want to see. I want to see big changes. I want to see some of the things we were talking about. Like, it's time to stop teasing us. Like, if you want to do a story about like maybe the Federation's kind of losing its way, because we always reflect in our sci-fi what's going on right now. Obviously, we are socially and politically divided right now. I'm not saying that there's some guy that wears a red hat who wants to be the Federation president or whatever. Don't do that. But I think it's okay to have cracks in the edifice, and part of the story can be examining those cracks and fixing them. And I think that it would be okay to do that. I'd also like to see, and things can't get too messed up before we have to get it back to kind of classic for the 32nd century, but I'd like to see like technology change. You're telling me in 1,000 years, like they are still using warp drives and they're still using transporters and like, try to shake it up a little bit. They've done that in a way by introducing a lot of different and cool elements in these new Star Trek shows. But I think that they've proved that they can take Star Trek to entirely new frontiers, so to speak. And I'd like to see them do that. Like, we're not going to gas the original series, cast at the end of this. But if this is a way of kind of saying goodbye to them and kind of putting that to bed, then I want to see, more crews like Discovery. I want to see more experiments, like Lower Decks. I want to see, Strange New Worlds. We'll keep that. That's our classic, our classic Star Trek. But I want to see them continuing to kind of evolve it and move it forward. And I hope we get that.
Yeah, me too. Took the words out of my mouth.
Well, good. I just put coffee in my mouth. That's it for our show this week. Thank you for joining us, listeners. And if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes get released of this show. Also, when you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice, subscribe to our show, give us a rating and a review. It really does help us out. If you're watching us on Twitch right now or on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the heart button, hit the bell button so you get notified when we are live and broadcasting. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on April 20th for the finale episode of Star Trek Picard. And they're keeping it all under wraps. The people that are going to see it in IMAX, I guess they'll know, but we won't know until next week. But we'll be here next Thursday to cover it, starting again at 8 p.m. Central. So join us then and follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTPOD to see when we are live and broadcasting. And that's it for this week. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about Star Trek Picard and remind people where they can find you online.
Thank you. Follow me on Twitter at Gondor Gold, and everyone should follow Star Trek Unlimited everywhere too.
Awesome. And I'm at KA1IBAN on the Twitter box, which is still around for now. We'll see. Every day we get a little farther from Twitter being irrelevant, but we'll see. We'll keep doing it for now. And you can also, of course, subscribe to us here, like I said, on Twitch. Follow Enterprising Individuals at EISTPOD on Twitter. And that is it for this week. We are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.